Okay, we are live right now.
Bro, I got a FB notification. Bro, I got a FB notification. Bro,
பார்க்க முடியுதா? லைவ் வருதா அதுல?
yeah, it's coming live in FB. Hide it. Bro, I got a FB notification.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Bro,
Let's give it some
Raj, can you check if
2
it's
minutes.
still வருதா பாருங்க. I made it private.
Yeah, I'll check it. Nah, it's gone now.
Okay.
It's gone. Okay.
So we'll wait for some time, like 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. To get people going, sure.
Bro, 5 பேர் தான் வந்திருக்காங்க bro.
பார்த்துருக்கேன். Enable பண்ணிடலாமா?
Hold on a second. Yeah, better enable it. We'll give it another minute. Jared, your blue light is gone.
Oh, I probably turned it off. Let's see here. Wonder why that shut off.
We'll give it another minute. Jared, your blue light is gone. There's some echo.
Okay, இப்போ சரியாயிட்டுமா. இப்போ சரியாயிட்டுமா. Yeah.
Okay.
Enable watch party வேணா போட்டுக்கோங்க.
Okay. Okay, I'll just put watch party. Okay, I think we can start. Kiran, you just start with the intro.
Okay.
Okay, I think Jared doesn't need much of an intro. People already know.
Yeah.
When we just made this poster, I think most of the people like, okay, we are ready, we are coming in, they're jumping in. So to say formally, Jared is from Esler Launch and Magmod. He's a brand ambassador for them. So we invited him for this particular session, and he's going to just do some image. He's going to show some images and let us know how he shot it. ஸோ மக்களே ஒன்றும் இல்லை, இன்னைக்கு இமேஜ் வந்து ஜாரட் வந்து மேக்மோட் அண்ட் எஸ்எல்ஆரோட அம்பாசிடர், பிராண்ட் அம்பாசிடர். ஸோ அவர் என்ன பண்ணுறாருன்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, இன்னைக்கு வந்து இமேஜஸ் கொஞ்சம் காமிச்சு அவர் எப்படி ஷூட் பண்ணியிருக்காரு அப்படின்றத காமிக்க போகிறாரு. ஸோ அவர் என்ன சொல்கிறாரோ, ஒருவேளை தமிழ் மக்களுக்கு சில விஷயங்கள் புரியல அப்படின்னா நீங்கள் டைரக்ட்லி நீங்கள் கொஸ்டின்ஸில் கேட்கலாம். வி வில் பி டிரான்ஸ்லேட்டிங் ஃபார் இட் பிஹாஃப் ஆஃப். ஸோ I think நம்ம செஷனுக்கு டைரக்டா போகலாம்னு நினைக்கிறேன். So Jared, the stage is set for you.
Cool. We ready just to dive right in? Do you have any questions before we start?
Not exactly.
No? Cool. All right.
We're just eagerly waiting.
Okay, sounds good, guys. Well, before I jump in,
Jared, I mean, maybe you could tell more about yourself, about your like your photograph company, how many years you've been here.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. So just to begin, so I like they mentioned, I live in Colorado, just north of Denver. I originally started photographing weddings. My very first wedding I photographed was in about 2010, 2011. So I've been doing this now for almost 10 years. It, photography is not my professional background by any means. It's just something that has always been appealing to me, and I've always been interested in. But my degree and my college education is all in business, has nothing to do with photography. And so in about 2011 is when I photographed my very first wedding, and I have been doing it ever since. We have we photograph currently about 35 to 40 weddings a year. We stay pretty busy. We have a team of amazing second shooters and associate shooters that work with me. And I'm mostly well known, I would probably say, for my dramatic lighting and grand kind of environmental type portraits. I work really closely with SLR Lounge. I manage a handful of their education communities, as well as I work closely with MagMod. We've had a great partnership with them for several years, and absolutely love using their products in my workflow.
Actually, to be open, MagMod changed a lot of things as for wedding photography. That's true. We have to agree that the quick solutions what they offered, like, it's killer.
Right. So let's just jump into a handful of photos. I'm gonna do a screen share here so we can see my screen. Give me a second to do this. Screen share. All right. Is my Lightroom showing up for everyone? Is that working?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me throw this light behind here too. It looks like it was dying out. All right. So I'm just going to start at the very beginning, and I'll walk through some of these photos. I'll walk through kind of the thought process when I shot them, as well as the process when I edited these photos. Now, this was a wedding I shot about 3 years ago, maybe even longer, 4 or 5 years ago, up in Aspen, Colorado. And, cigar photos are always something that are fun and are getting even more and more popular. At the time when I shot this, it was kind of a bit more of a novel idea. But the photo is pretty straightforward, pretty easy. I encourage all of my couples during the reception, during the party of the wedding, to do what we call a reception sneak away, where they sneak away from the party, they go enjoy a smoke, or they go enjoy a cocktail, go enjoy some whiskey, whatever it might be, but just to go take a small little break from all of the action. And during that break is when we often love to go shoot some of our nighttime photos. This photo was taken with the use of 2 different lights. Really simple setup directly behind the groom at about shoulder height. I have one light with a blue gel on it, and that is what is illuminating all of the smoke that we're seeing behind the groom. It's also creating kind of that rim lighting around his ear and around his head. And then to the camera right, off to the side, I have another flash with a grid on it. Both of those lights, or my white balance in camera is just set to around 5,500 Kelvin. It's pretty normal, right around 55 or 6,000. So I'm not doing any sort of color shifting or anything with this particular shot. And that is how that's captured. And if you can see, this is the original shot. You can see, right, I shot it a little bit wider initially, and then I cropped in just to give it a little bit of a different feel. I was trying to hide his lighter down here because it's just a cheap lighter, and so that's why I cropped in a little bit closer. And if I was to reset this out, you can see there's the original shot. So a little bit of warmth. I toned down a little bit of the orange in his skin from the fire. I toned down, and then I drew some attention to that smoke. And so that's the quick edit right there. And then, like I said, I just kind of cropped in some of this dead space just a little bit to draw your attention a little bit more into the groom, into what is happening. And that is the final product. I edited these, I believe, with Two Man Studios' develop preset. And then from there, through the HSL sliders, I tweaked the oranges and adjusted the saturation on the oranges and the blues so that I could really get that strong color. So, initially the oranges are going to be like this. And to tone those down, I'm coming straight into this slider and I'm adjusting that. Or I might even grab it and bring it over to the skin tones and adjust it this way. So I'm going to play around a lot with the illuminance and with the saturation to get the look that I'm going for. Same with the blue smoke, right? You can adjust just the blue and the illuminance on just the blue to make it stand out exactly how you want it to. Any questions about this shot, you guys?
Actually, I was not able to see it. Yeah, but you can go.
Sorry, the sound's coming through kind of funky on my side. Is it?
Yeah,
Is it?
Raj, your voice was not clear.
What's that?
Yeah, no questions.
No questions. Cool.
It's really amazing. I'm just looking at the image. Like, okay, how did you avoid the spill of light here?
How did I do what?
There is a backlight which is coming in, right? It has not casted onto the subject. How did you avoid it?
It's just hiding behind the groom. Essentially, I have it below his shoulder level, so that you're not seeing that direct light shooting straight into the camera. When I'm looking at this now, and this has been an older, it's fairly old photo, I would probably go in and burn some of these blacks down a little bit more if I was to do that, just to give it a little bit of a cleaner look, because I'm starting to see a little bit of noise in there. So I would probably make a few more adjustments. Maybe I would clean up a little bit of these pores on his skin if I was to work on it a little bit more. But yeah, no major cloning or anything was needed. This is almost straight out of camera. Like I said, here's the before and here's the after. So let me, and people that are watching this on YouTube, I will, if you do have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And I'll try to stop in over the next few days and answer any questions as they're coming in. All right, and looking over here. Okay, let's go to the next image. There's a few people showing a little bit of network issues, but I think this is streaming good. All right, so next image, guys. This is another one of my favorite images. This was a real moment. The groom gave a little welcome speech at the very beginning of the ceremony. And in that welcome speech, he's getting a little bit emotional. A few tears are coming down. And again, this is a completely authentic, real moment captured with no direction or anything of that sort. If you would imagine a clock, the groom is standing, say, in the very center of the clock. I have one light that's placed at about 2 or 3 o'clock that's just out of the frame. So it's going to be over here. And that light is going to have a grid on it. And that is what is creating this kind of rim light that's outlining the groom and what's separating him from the background. I then also, very opposite of that, at about 7 o'clock over on this complete other side, I have another light that is facing the groom and lighting him from the front. Oftentimes when I am photographing speeches or things like that, I will set up my lights and then I'll take a small little piece of tape and I'll put a little X or a little mark on the floor. And I'll ask the people that are giving the speeches, hey, stand near this X so that my lights are in the proper position. Because you'll see a lot of people as they're talking, they might get nervous and they walk back and forth, and then your lights aren't in position and you're having to go move them. And so by simply marking the ground of where you would like them to stand, and they don't have to be in that exact spot, but give them a general idea, then that's going to allow you to set up your lights how you need them. In this particular shot, you're going to see the light flares and the bokeh that's all around the groom. All I am doing to capture that is I am shooting through candles and decorations on the tables. So on each of the tables, there are, chandeliers and candles and champagne glasses and different decoration. And I am shooting through those to create that effect. And the light that is at 2 o'clock is hitting those glasses and causing them to have that reflection. And so that is how this is being done. And I am essentially anticipating the moment. I'm anticipating the groom to smile, to laugh, to wipe away that tear, whatever it might be. And I am sitting there firing away as soon as I anticipate that movement. So, so when I see the groom getting a little bit emotional, I know that he's probably going to wipe away his tear. And so I'm waiting for that moment. And as soon as he goes to do that, I'm going to shoot out about 5 or 10 shots of him whopping up to wipe that tear away, so I can capture the perfect moment when he makes contact at his eye. So that is how that was photographed. If you see, again, when I reset the photo, I shoot it wider. That's not uncommon for me to shoot slightly wider and then to crop in as needed. I don't always do that, but I want to be able to have the ability to crop things and to adjust things. And so this is how it looks straight out of camera without any sort of editing. And then, just a few small adjustments where I'm cropping in, I'm creating a little bit of a vignette around the photo to darken some of the areas. And that is about it. Everything else is pretty much done straight in camera. If I was to make some more adjustments to this, I would probably go in and remove some of the light on his face. But for me, that's not a huge issue, simply because I am trying to, I shoot a lot of volume, and so I'm pretty content with how these land about like that. So this is another one of these shots, how I did it. The edit that I edited this with, I believe it was with, let me open these up on this left side here. I started this one out with the Amarone preset, and then again with the HSL, made a few little tweaks. And then I have a Amarone, which is essentially a dehazing brush that I'll oftentimes brush over top of the skin, just to bring back some of the oranges so it looks a little bit more natural. Okay. All right. So someone asked, are the lights on a stand or is someone carrying them? So great question. So it depends. Sometimes on this particular shot, they are on stands. And that is usually how I do it. I usually set up 4 lights on stands and put them in the main corners of the room. And then I will have with me 1 flash in my back pocket. And if I need to have a flash close by, I will essentially pull that one out, and I will hand hold it off the camera and catch the and light up what I need to. Do I use TTL? No, I don't. Very rarely do I use TTL. If I'm doing TTL, what I will do is I will maybe fire 1 or 2 shots, and then I use Godox lights. And on the Godox trigger, there's a button on the bottom right. I can't remember what it says on it. I'd have to go look at the trigger. But if you fire in TTL and then you hold that button down, it is going to convert. It's going to go back and look at what the power setting was for your lights, and it's going to change it to manual to that power setting. And so although I may take a test shot with TTL, I always afterwards move it over to manual and then make my small tweaks in manual. I feel like I have much more control while things are in manual.
Yeah, I think it's called TCM.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Probably.
And like I said, if I had my trigger, I could show you the button, but it's on the bottom right corner. That's all.
Yeah, I have the trigger here on the screen. I think you can see it.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not focusing it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not focusing.
No, but everyone should know TCM right there on that bottom right, and that's how I'll do it sometimes. If I'm struggling to get the manual settings perfect, I'll fire it in TTL and then immediately adjust it to manual and then make the small adjustments from there.
TTL converted to manual. Yeah.
Yep, TTL converted to manual. Yep. All right, guys. So here's another one that I really love. So this was a shot that I took. The groom was getting ready in the attic of this venue, and there were no windows except for one in the entire like upstairs area. And so when it came time to shooting the groom, I wanted to play off of that window and make it shine and play with the harsh light, because it was fairly dark up there. So of course, with him standing right next to the window, he's lit up very nice, but that light is falling off almost immediately into darkness. And so I have the groom standing right there. The groom is very fashionable, and I just have him looking into the light so we can front face him. The photo itself was a very simple setup. When it came to the editing, I did a little bit more of an aggressive edit. You will see when I reset it, here's the actual original photo. So I am doing a lot of adjustments with the highlights and with the shadows. So everything that is in the shadows, I want to be completely black, and everything that are in the highlights, I want to be completely white. So I convert that into a black and white photo so that it fits that. And then I went in with a brush and essentially went in and increased the highlights until they were completely white. So I took my highlights and my shadows and my whites and everything, and I went along here. I will use the auto mask tool as well so that I'm getting strong lines. So I maintain those strong lines throughout. And then I did the same thing with the blacks. I took all my blacks and I used auto masking so that I draw a strong line right there at that edge. And then I blacked everything else out around the groom and then faded it in on him here. So cool. Any questions about this one? I'll move on to the next if we're good. I'm not seeing any questions over here, so let me double check.
Jared, one question. Question. Can you hear me?
Yep, we're good.
Yeah. What kind of modifiers do you use actually for the reception, wedding, and for the dance? That's a question from my side.
Yeah. So I'm going to break down the different parts of the day and tell you what kind of modifiers I use throughout the day, because it adjusts periodically throughout the day. So during the morning and the wedding prep, I will use essentially grids and gels only. I very seldom use spheres. I very seldom use soft boxes or anything else. And about 50% of the photos that I shoot during prep are just natural light or available light. I'm not using any sort of flash. I am watching for windows like this photo that we're looking at right now. I'm looking for windows and I'm taking advantage of those, but I'm really capturing a lot of photojournalistic photos where I need to be able to capture those moments quickly. And I'll typically have 2 or 3 lights set up in the room. I'll have them in different groupings, an ABC grouping, and I'll adjust them as I need to. And like I said, about half of the photos for the prep are going to have flash fired and are going to be usually gelled with a 1/4 CTO and a grid. During the ceremony of the wedding, if it is an outdoor ceremony, I very seldom use any flash. I'll do everything pretty much natural light, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that the light is coming from the right direction, right? That we don't have these heavy shadows and that they have a dark background. If it's outdoors and it's in the evening, or at nighttime, I will certainly use flashes. And if I do that, I will use the mag beam typically, and I'll do 2 mag beams, and I'll do them on either side of the ceremony, and I'll move them way out so that they're not actually in the photo, and I'll point them in, and I'll point them in essentially a crisscross right in front of the bride and groom and their wedding party, so that it's just barely lighting them up. Yeah, I will also, if it's an indoor ceremony, I'll typically do the same thing. If the room is large enough that I can use the mag beams and I can move them away from everything, then I will do that. If I can't move them back, then I will simply use grids. And if it's like an like a typical Indian wedding, I will actually just go in on where the stage is and where people are sitting, and I'll actually just take LED lights and I will attach them to the stage itself, and I'll just light up that area. A lot of my like cultural weddings and Indian weddings will actually already have lights set up spotlighting the couple. And if that's the case, then I don't need to set up any lights. I will just use the lights that have been set up to light the couple so that they're easy to view. And then when it comes time for the party and the reception, I use 4 lights on light stands and I put them around the dance floor and essentially the 4 corners. And I will use a grid, and then I will on every single one, and then I will use a gel on every single one, depending how orange the chandeliers and the lights are inside of the room. I will use either a half or a full CTO for those to match that existing lighting. And then, like I mentioned, I will also carry in my back pocket another flash in case I need it just for a quick shot close up. And on that, I'll have the same thing, a grid and a gel. And then I also will use a really small LED light I typically keep in my pouch or in my pocket. And again, if I need to get a photo right close and we're off of the dance floor, I'll pull that out and I'll just hand hold it and light the individual up that way. All right. So another cool photo.
Just one more question on this, actually,
Yeah.
if you don't mind asking.
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, like during the ceremony, which is outdoors, like typically, I'm not sure how the timing works there. Let's say the wedding happens somewhere around midday. So, like, there's going to be a lot of shadows. Actually, how do you actually manage that?
Yeah. So yeah, great question.
You need a lot of power. You need a lot of power in the flash as well. So bringing the flash near is not going to be practical.
Right. So the key to that is talking with your clients in advance and making sure that doesn't happen as best as you can. So what I mean by that is when someone hires me, that very first thing that I send out to them is an article that I've written about the importance of their timeline and the importance of choosing the right time of day for the different portions of their wedding day. And so with regards to ceremonies, I always encourage them to make sure that the light is backlit, right? So that they are facing so the group is facing the sun, so that the couple has the light behind them, not directly in their face. That allows for the shadows to be falling towards me rather than in different directions. And then, of course, I'm just going to be exposing for them, and hopefully they have somewhat of a darker backdrop behind them, whether it's the mountains, whether it's trees, whatever it might be. That all being said, not every wedding is going to work out that way, right? They're going to face different directions. And that is just the nature of shooting real moments and real weddings rather than shooting, a completely staged photo shoot. And so there are going to be shadows. There are going to be imperfections in those photos. And that is part of the beauty of the day. So certainly one could set up these lights and move them in very close and turn it up to full power and knock out those shadows. And depending on the situation, that might be something that I would do, especially with the mag beams, which have a bit more of a concentrated light. But to be very honest, in most of those situations, I would just allow the shadows to land where they land. And then in post, I'm going to raise my shadows. I'm going to decrease my highlights to kind of compensate for that and not worry too much about it. I don't want to turn someone's wedding into my photo shoot. And so I want to make sure that we have communicated to them the importance of the choices that they make with regards to where their ceremony is and at what time. And then once I've taught them that, if they still choose to do it, at noon where it's going to be harsh lighting, then they're going to have noon harsh light. And again, that is just part of being real and photographing real moments rather than a stage. So I think hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, Jared, actually, that answers actually. You
Perfect.
just let it be. Okay.
Just let it be.
Because not all weddings
Yeah.
all weddings are going to be the way you expect.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
you know, of course you could go in and you could add a bunch more lights and you could make some serious adjustments, but that's going to change the whole feeling that they have when they experience their wedding. And although the photos are incredibly important, more important than the end result with the photo is the experience that your clients have while having the photos taken. And so what I mean by that is if the clients have an amazing time, an amazing experience working with you, that amazing experience is going to when they see the photos, they're going to still feel that way, and they're still going to love the photos, even if technically they're not perfect. And just the opposite is true. If you give your clients a mediocre experience and they don't have a good time and you are difficult to work with, it doesn't matter how amazing the photos are. They're still going to remember that experience that they had while working with you, and they're going to pick apart your photos and find problems with them, even if they are technically more sound and better photos. And so always remember, make sure your clients are happy. Make sure your clients are having a good time. Make sure their needs are being taken care of, that you're listening to them and asking them what they need and what they want, and that you're working with them in that sense. Okay. So let's go over to the next photo here. So this was during a engagement photo shoot. Really simple setup here, and a lot of people are starting to pick up on this. But this is I have one light behind the couple, just a mag or an AD200, a Godox AD200 with a mag sphere, and that is lighting up that whole doorway and that whole entryway. In camera, I am dropping all of my exposure, and I'm metering off of the sky. So in camera, I'm metering off the sky to get that exposure exactly how I want it and dropping it down. I'm also dropping my white balance. So rather than being around 5,500 or so, I'm going to drop it down to about 3,500 Kelvin so that the sky looks a lot more blue and has a nicer effect to it. And then essentially what I'm doing, and you'll see a lot of people talk about this, is I'm just taking my cell phone and I'm holding it up to the bottom of the lens to create that reflection. And you're going to sit there and you're going to tweak it back and forth until you get the look that you're going for. And you're going to tilt it back and forth like that, move it in and out a little bit. And that's going to give you that reflection appearance. And I often do that when I have a really cool clouds overhead, or in this particular photo, we have the lights that are overhead, and that's how we're doing that. And then also, it is just a large parking lot or a large driveway right in front of the couple, and it's not very beautiful. And so this allows me to hide some of the ugliness, so to speak, of just a black asphalt or a black road or whatever it was. I can't remember what the driveway looked like, but that space right there, it allowed me to hide that. And again, just draw more focus to the scene and to the overhead lights. So awesome. So I'm going to look over here at some of the questions as well to see what we got. So I think we got someone said it looks like a pool or water. Yeah, I mean, that's the idea, is it does look like a pool, or it does look like overhead or like a water or a river or something. And so that's why I like it. It looks like a real authentic reflection. It's important to get, if you want to try to do this, it's important to get a black phone. If you have a white phone or a colorful phone case, you're going to start seeing the edges. And then some phones actually have beveled edges, and I've chosen one that has a rounded edge simply because it does allow for a better reflection. But if you don't want to use your phone, just a simple mirror or a piece of glass or anything of that sort is going to work, is fine as well. Or a prism. There's lots of different options. You just need a dark reflective surface is all. So great. How do I manage with multiple teams are shooting a single a wedding? I'm assuming you're meaning multiple teams, like a videographer shooting the same wedding as me. So what I do with my clients if they are hiring multiple teams, they have to notify me and give me the contact information in advance. Then I require my couples to choose a priority. And I know that sounds difficult, but there needs to be one person calling the shots. And so I have my couples, hey, you need to choose the person who is going to be calling those shots. And if that's me, awesome. If that is someone else, that is fine as well. It's not a big deal. But I need you to let me know if I am the one that is dictating how you're standing and where you're standing and what we're doing, or if the videography team is. And so when we do that, typically I'm given reins to be in charge, and then I will call up the videographer or the other team in advance. I will give them the timeline. I will introduce myself and play friendly and just tell them what my plans are and see if they have any questions or if they need anything. If they do, then we will adjust the timeline to make sure that all of their needs are taken or are in consideration. And then anytime I take a photo, I'll take it, I'll spend a few minutes with the couple posing them, and then I will always stop and I will look at my videography team or the other team, and I will say, hey, do you guys want a few minutes here as well? And I give them 5 or 10 minutes to do their thing is that they need to do. So that is how we do that. Let me jump over. I'm looking over here at some of the questions. Awesome. It looks like we may have lost a few people. All right, let me go to the next photo, everyone. So this is an incredible, fun way to, when you sneak away in the evening, to have a good time with your couple. Very easy shot to capture and will impress your couples and be something that they will remember forever. So again, if we're using that clock analogy where the couple is standing in the very center of a clock, I have one light at 2 o'clock and I have another light at 10 o'clock. So behind the couple, and the light at 2 o'clock is pointed at the bride, and the clock that is at 10 o'clock is pointing at the groom. And it is, so we're making kind of an X formation with the lights. And the light that is at 10 o'clock is going to be lighting up the kind of the rim light or the hair of the bride. And it's going to be lighting up all of the champagne in front, and then his front side and his face. And again, the light at 2 o'clock is doing the same thing. It's going to just lightly catch his shoulders and his back and light him up there. And then it's going to front light the bride and light up everything in between them. I'm shooting this one with 2 AD200s, Godox AD200s, and each one I have on each one I have a grid. That is it. Now, when the couple is spraying it, there's a couple tips that they have to pop the cork gently, is how I have them do it. I don't have them pop it with the spray. I have them pop it gently, then put their thumb over the hole and then just start shaking it. And the tighter they hold their thumb over the hole of the champagne, the more it's going to spray. Kind of like when we're kids and we're spraying hoses on each other, right? If you hold it really tight on the end of the hose, it's going to make a huge mist and it's going to spray it further. We don't want to ruin their outfits. We don't want to ruin their, get them sticky or messy or anything like that. So I am having them spray it just in front of each other. So the groom is spraying his champagne right in front of the bride, and the bride is spraying hers right in front of the groom. So they're not getting soaked. I'm getting soaked. It's all coming and landing on me, but I'm okay with that because it doesn't matter if I get a little bit messy or sticky. But
as long as it's champagne, it's okay, right?
Yeah, right. And after this particular shot, because they soaked me really good, it took me a good half hour to clean my lens off because I had champagne all over my camera body and all over my lenses and everything else. But whatever, it's part of the fun of creating these shots, so it's not a big deal. When it came time to editing this shot, I had to, here, I'll back out. Here's the actual photo. So you can see my light up here. You can see my light up there. And we're just in the parking lot, just outside of the venue. And again, I'm shooting a little bit wider than I would for my final. And then I'm just cropping it in. And then essentially I'm doing I'm going in and I'm cloning out some of those backlights that you'll see, like some of the city lights in the background. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Some of the city lights that are in the background, I'm cloning those out as much as I can. And then I am killing all of the saturation. So if you'll see this right here, I have 0 saturation. So, and I brush that everywhere. So everywhere outside of the couple, if I go and you see my overlay, right, like this, it's basically a selective color where I am making all of the champagne and all of the city lights black and white while I'm still maintaining the color on the couple. And so that is how that photo is shot. And then you can see, you know, of course, there's other elements to it that I cloned out, but it's a pretty straightforward concept, works really, really well, and couples absolutely love it. And then I'm going to go in with my burn, and I'm going to burn out some of these other distractions that are here. So cool. Before I jump on, I'm going to Joe check and see if we got any questions. Nope, no other questions. So let's move on to the next one here. All right. So this is a styled shoot that I did for a venue. Really simple. This was shot with the Mag Box. So this was right after the Mag Box was released, and I'm playing with a little bit of a larger modifier. Again, a very simple shot. In camera, I'm underexposing the lighting so that we can actually see the light, right? You can see the light coming out of these bulbs, and you can see the light. There's a window over to the left as well. But I'm adjusting all the exposure for that, and I'm dropping my white balance down to, I'm probably about 4,000 Kelvin with my white balance. And then I have a gel inside of the box as well. I'm shooting this with an AD200. So really simple, straightforward. And then when it came time to editing, not a ton had to be done, except I just needed to bring up crop again, right? I'm cropping in a little bit tighter and bringing up the exposure a little bit and increasing the contrast. And then I went in and did a little bit of brushing on the groom's face to light him up just a little bit. And that's it. Pretty straightforward, easy shot, draws your attention right into the groom. We got strong expression coming from him. And this photo shoot was inside of an old castle, like a 150-year-old castle. And so we wanted it to kind of have that elegant feeling to it. So the posing and everything that we did was very, very elegant, very Vogue. This is that exact same groom and the exact same castle. This is down in the basement in what they're calling like the man cave. And in this shot, we're doing things a little bit different. We are dropping our exposure again heavily, you guys. This shot is probably, if I didn't fire a flash, this is probably 2.5 stops underexposed. We're darkening things way, way, way down so that we are maintaining all the detail of the highlights. And then in my white balance, I'm dropping it way down so that everything that is white is now turning blue. So the ceiling is now blue. The table has a little bit of blue to it. The highlights from the reflections in the wall and everything has a little bit of blue to it. And then I am using an AD200 here with a grid on it and a full CTO. And I just have this off to the camera left, pointed directly at the groom. And we're just doing like your traditional Rembrandt or your traditional split lighting. When it came time to edit it, you can see my light stand right there. There's my light stand with the grid and gel on it. So pretty straightforward. When it came time to edit this, essentially, I am just cropping in a little bit like I typically do. There was a few distractions in there that I had to clone out. So you're going to see like there was an exit sign that was there. And I think over here, where's the light stand. So I cloned that out, and then I'm taking and I'm burning down some of these areas to hide some of the distraction. And that's pretty much it when it comes time to the editing. You can see my adjustments over here. And most of these adjustments are going to be the double IPA preset. So the double IPA 2-man develop preset is what I start with. And then all of my brushing that you're going to see usually is going to be coming from the SLR Lounge Visual Flow toolkit. So that is what I like to use for my brushing. All right.
Cool set of images.
You like that?
Yeah, definitely. And there's a question, even I had in mind. What is the usual focal length when you go for these kind of shots? Because there's
Yeah.
very less discussion as well.
Yeah, great question. So my favorite lens, probably my favorite lens that I shoot with the entire day is my 16 to 35. So I shoot with Sony camera equipment, and then the 16 to 35 G Master lens is the lens that I'm using for this one, and for a lot of these. If you this one right here as well is my 16 to 35. This one right here is my 16 to 35. This one's a 24 to 70. This one right here is a 16 to 35. So you can see when I like to shoot wide and I like to shoot close for a lot of those shots. I like to shoot on extremes. So I am either shooting at 16, or I'm going to pull out my 70 to 200 and I'm going to shoot at 200. And I like to shoot on both sides of those extremes. And I always shoot with two cameras. Almost always I have, one camera under each arm. And for most of the wedding day, it's going to be the 16 to 35 under one arm and the 70 to 200 under the other arm.
Okay.
Cool.
Jared, I have another question. So you've been, you have amazing set of images, and you said you've been doing it for 10 years. So with roughly around 30 weddings per year. So roughly you would have shot 300 plus weddings.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask you about the success failure rate. Are you able to land money shots in all the weddings, or it's like only in few weddings you get the shots which you want in your portfolio?
Yeah. So great question. So I shoot a lot of photos, during every single wedding, because I am trying to. So a lot of the photos that I'm showing you guys right now are portraits where I am directing the shot, where I have more control over it. That only is a very small amount of the photos that I shoot on a typical wedding. Maybe 5% of the photos, maybe 5 to 10% of the photos are going to be these directed portraits. They often are the couple's favorite, and they often are photographers' favorites as well. So that's a reason why we're showing you these. But on a typical wedding, if it's an all-day wedding where I'm going to get there in the morning and I'm going to stay all the way till the end of night, it's not uncommon for me to shoot 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 photos. And if I have a second photographer, the two of us together, we may shoot 10,000, 12,000 photos on a big, long wedding. I'm going to only deliver to the couple about 10% of those photos. So I'm going to deliver maybe 800 to 1,000 photos for a typical wedding. So the reason being that I shoot so much is because the vast majority of the photos I'm shooting are photojournalistic, where I'm trying to capture real, authentic moments. And to capture those right, I shoot through the entire moment. A moment of someone coming up to wipe a tear away may only last 3 seconds. And when I see that happening, I'm going to fire through those entire 3 seconds. And I keep my camera on high speed shutter. So 10 frames a second. So I may shoot 30 photos of one simple moment so that I can find the exact shot where the couple's lips are about to touch, or the groom's about to wipe away that tear, or the father is laughing, or whatever it might be. So that is why I shoot so much, and why we cull out so many, is because you don't need 20 or 30 photos of the exact same moment, but you do need, or you do want, that perfect moment where that action was at its pinnacle moment. So to answer your question, not every single one is perfect. That is part of the artistry of photography, is you have to take risks. If all of your photos are perfect, if you're only shooting, if every photo you shoot you delivered to your couple, I would challenge you to push yourself harder and to shoot through those moments more. The photos that I'm showing you guys, most of these, with 1 or 2 practice shots, I can hone in my light and I'm ready to go, because I have complete control over these. But on a wedding day, that's not always the case. All right. So I wanted to show a photo that is completely naturally lit. So a lot of the photos that people see me shoot with have these really cool flashes, and that's something that I've become relatively well known. But understanding light in all of its forms is incredibly important, and better understanding flash has made me a better natural light photographer as well. So this is a photo of a couple who came in from Florida to Colorado for a destination elopement, and we spent about 2 hours, 3 hours, something like that, hiking around the mountains and capturing these beautiful photos of them. And I am watching, while I'm walking around, I am watching for highlights and shadows. I'm watching for these moments, and of course, the sun is shining and it's reflecting off of the lake. And so I have the couple right down towards the edge of the lake so that I can put them in the brightest spot of that highlight. Then what I am doing is I am greatly underexposing the shot by like 3 or 4 stops. This is underexposed so that you can see the details even in the brightest highlights. So that water right there behind the couple is incredibly bright, but I'm dropping that exposure all the way down. And then what I'm doing to get the sun to create that starburst effect is I'm closing my aperture. So my aperture in this is at f22. So a very, very, very small aperture, and that's what's going to cause the light to create that starburst effect. And that is how I'm doing that here. When it came time to edit this photo, there wasn't a ton, except that I'm warming it up. So here's the photo beforehand. And sometimes it's embarrassing to show these before shots, but I want people to know that this is part of the process, right? This is what it looks like without any edits. This is the raw file, right? And then as soon as I apply, maybe my basic edit, it's going to look like that. And then I'm going to warm it up. So here is my final photo, because I'm going to take that warmth and I'm going to crank it way up. And you could even warm it up even more and play around with the white balance even more. I'm a huge, huge fan of the HSL sliders. I spend a lot of time in here adjusting colors and making them look exactly how I want them to look. And then afterwards, I took a brush, I think it's probably this one right here, and I created some blues around the outside edges, because I love contrasting colors. I love cool blue and orange. I love pinks and greens. I love opposite contrasting colors. And so you're going to see me playing with those a lot. So that's why I brush in that blue a little bit there. I'm trying to, yeah, and that's it, straightforward. And again, there's some imperfections. Like I could, of course, go in here and I could clone these out. I obviously cloned out a bunch of dust specks from the sky, and one could go in and delete all of that, but I like it. I feel like it's part of the imperfection of a real photo, of it hitting the glass on the front of the lens. And so I'm completely okay with it. And this is actually one I have in my office. I have this one hanging up on the wall because it's one that I enjoy so much. Because again, it's showing you what you can do as a natural light photographer to still create unique photos.
Thank you, Grant. Actually, I really love the fact that you are showing the before pictures, because not many people are like, not many photographers would do it. And what people need to understand here is like, you need to shoot with editing in mind. Whenever you shoot, you need to shoot it with editing in mind. So
oh yeah, absolutely. And if you were shooting this with film or something where you weren't going to have as much creative control, then I would have maybe considered the white balance a little bit more. But there's this thin balance when you're working with real couples of maintaining their attention and keeping them happy and moving quickly so they're not standing there forever, and getting these cool shots. So again, their experience has to be at the forefront of my mind. So I want them to be down here. I want them to hold their pose. I'm directing the bride to throw her arm over his shoulder, looking at each other and everything. But at the same time, I want to get this shot within a minute or two, because if I make them stand there for 15 minutes while I hone it in and get it all perfect in camera, they're going to lose interest. They're not going to have as good of experience. Cool. All right. So this is another one. And this is the exact same couple, actually. And this is up in Rocky Mountain National Park. And a beautiful, fun photo. This is all in camera. So there's no composite done here. This is a single exposure. And essentially what we did is, as the sun was setting, we had watched in advance and knew that this was going to be a dark night, that there wasn't going to be a moon, and knew that, the Milky Way was going to be rising from the east. And we went and hung out in our cars for about an hour and a half and waited for it to get very dark. And this is at the very top of the mountains. We're at about 12,000 feet elevation. So that's, about 4,000 meters up in the mountains, way up in the mountains. And essentially this is a long exposure. So let me see if I have my settings in here. I don't have them, but I am doing I want to say this was a 20 or a 30-second exposure. Very long exposure. And there's a lot of different ways to light up the couple when you're doing these long exposures. Sometimes I have done it where I will use a flash, and on the second curtain, I will have it fire, and that locks their motion in place. But in this particular shot, that's not what we did. I actually had another fellow photographer friend of mine, Chad Winstead, was working this wedding with me. And we are literally opening up the shutter, and about 20 seconds into it, taking our flashlight and going like this. And that's it. Because it's so dark that the flash and anything else is going to overexpose them. It's going to be too much light. And so again, we are turning my cell phone on and pointing it at them. And then for literally maybe 1 second, 2 seconds max, I'm exposing my flashlight on my cell phone and closing it off again. And that's all I did to illuminate the couple. That's it. And then in post, of course, Chad was standing right about here. So in post, I needed to remove Chad. And so we took a few photos with him there and a few photos without him there, so that we had a template for compositing the background. And then I just burnt down the foreground. So the mountains had a little bit of texture in them. And I just, again, blackened out the mountains so that all your attention is being drawn on the couple. And then over here, there was a little bit of glowing from a nearby city. And I cloned that out as well, just so that we had, had consistent stars throughout the sky. But that is how that's done. And there's like I said, a number of different ways that you can light couples. You can do composites, like heavy composites where you're putting in the sky, and things of that sort. But really the key aspect to this is just you have to leave your shutter open for a long time. And this is the same way that if you want to do sparkler, want to write in the sky with sparklers, or you want to do any of that kind of stuff, it's the same concept in the same process. Cool. All right. So let me move on to this photo. Because as we're talking about long exposures, this is another long exposure. And I thought that it might be good to go from one to another. Now, this is not nearly as long of an exposure, but this is 1.3 seconds long. I probably could have even gone less than that. But this is one that some people may have seen recently over in the develop community. This was one that the whole community edited. And essentially, I have the camera on a tripod. And that's another key element, by the way, that I forgot to mention with the star photo. It has to be on a tripod. You can absolutely not handhold these at all. Even if you are super steady, you're still going to get a little bit of shaking. So you absolutely have to have it on a tripod. And then I set a 2-second timer so that I touch it and then hands off, let the 2 seconds wind down, and then the exposure begins. So in this particular shot, I had the camera on a tripod. I hike down. I got the couple there up on the rock, and I'm doing that 1.3 seconds, opening it up. And I'm doing that because I wanted the water to look smooth, and I wanted the waterfall to look smooth. I wanted to kind of give it that creamy look. And then there's no flash. This is all naturally lit. And then in post, I'm going in and I'm going to lighten up the couple a little bit and clean up their skin, added a little bit of warmth coming through the trees. The sun was naturally over here, but I just exaggerated it a little bit and played around a little bit with the water and the rocks. So the before, if I reset this, you're going to see this is the before shot. And so you can see they're a little bit darkened and things like that. And of course, correcting it and then adjusting my edits, bringing in the blacks and again, drawing your focus on the couple. If you were to look closely, you can see that I brushed the couple as well. So if you were to zoom in and if I was to turn that on, you can see on their skin tones, I'm brushing that up. I'm increasing the exposure, dropping the contrast and brightening the highlights on their skin so that it looks nice and clean and fresh. And that's how we're doing that. And you'll see as well, again, there's a handful of different down here. There's a little bit of blue, or I'm playing with the waters, or I'm dropping the rocks just a little bit. And then up here as well, putting in that sun. And so that you can see where, with the overlay, you can see where all of my brushing is. Cool. All right. And
Cool.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
The last photo that I'm going to show you is the exact same photo, the exact same couple, the exact same location. These are all taken just seconds apart from one another. But I wanted you, and there's no Photoshop is done here. This is all done in camera with and then I'm using the HSL slider to intensify the colors. But what I am doing here is I am using, again, manual white balance. You guys, if you are shooting an automatic white balance, I'd highly, highly recommend you push your creative self and get out of auto white balance. If you're doing auto white balance, then all of the white balance correction you're going to be doing in post, which again is fine. But I feel like you have a little bit less control over the white balance. Now, when you want to change the color of the sky, you need to understand color opposites. And so the opposite of orange is blue, right? The opposite of blue is orange. The opposite of pink or magenta is green. And you can always remember that by going over to your white balance and looking at your white balance and looking at your temp and your tint sliders. You can see they go from green to pink, from blue to orange, etc. And in camera, you need to set your white balance to whatever color you want the sky to be. So if you want the sky to be, orange in this particular case, you're going to go into your white balance. You're going to take that white balance slider and you're going to drop it way down and make it as warm as you possibly can. And then if you take a photo at that moment without doing anything else, your couple is also going to look orange. And you can't have that, right? You want your couple to look normal and natural. And so you have to use the opposite. So the opposite of orange, again, blue. So you have to put a blue gel in your flash. When you put that blue gel in your flash, anywhere that your light lands is going to look natural and neutral, and it's going to correct the orange white balance. And the same thing with the blue. If you want the blue sky, you bring your white balance all the way down as cool as you can get it, and then you put that orange gel into your box. If you want a pink sky, adjust your white balance all the way to pinks, and then the opposite of the pinks are the green. So you have to put that green gel into your on your light or on your modifier. And then again, if I reset this, you'll see that I am intensifying the oranges. If you see this, I'm going to reset it. I am intensifying those blues. So although we're seeing the blue, when I apply my edit, I'm going to come over to this HSL. I'm going to grab this saturation and I'm going to bring it over into the sky, and I'm going to play around and I'm going to adjust those blues until I get them exactly how I want them. I'm going to take that luminance and I'm going to adjust that blue until I get it exactly how I want it. I'm going to take that hue and I'm going to adjust it until I get the perfect color of blue that I want. So if I want more of an emerald blue, that's what I'm getting right there. So that is how that is done. And again, it's the same process. If you're going with the oranges or the pinks, if I reset this, you're going to see that it's not the same color pink. It's slightly different color pink. I'm going to pin the white balance off of her white shirt or off of one of the more neutral spots to correct the white balance. And then again, I'm going to come into these HSL sliders and I'm going to adjust the color of just the pink, right? I could make that super neon pink. I could make that very purple. And that is how I'm making those adjustments. If I want that to be brighter, I'm just going to grab the pink and I'm going to adjust it. So all three, again, of these shots taken right next to each other, almost at the exact same moment, having three drastically different end results. And that's how that's done.
That's awesome, actually. Giving three different looks in within a matter of minutes. So, Jared, are you ready to explain? I mean, address few questions. We have few questions coming in from our FB live and watch party as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so there's one question. See, you typically told people are a little shocked that you are shooting 7,000 to 8,000 pictures per wedding. So when you do you really cull everything, or do you outsource anything, or everything is being done from your end?
Yeah, great question. So I do all of the culling myself. I cull very quickly, and one of my goals is to cull the entire wedding within a day of the wedding. So the very next day, I typically try to cull the entire wedding. A couple tips on culling is, I personally like to cull in Lightroom. I know a lot of people don't. They're going to be going over to Photo Mechanic or to some of these other softwares. But for me, I cull in Lightroom and I cull in grid mode. So if I do, I'm going to do, let's see here. So the mode that I'm in right now, where you can see lots of photos all together, that is how I typically will cull a wedding. So if I go over to a wedding here, let me just find a bunch of photos. So if I go to a wedding like this, I'm going to go right down the middle, and I'm going to be, rather than going through each photo, I'm going to be going down the middle, and I'm going to be going back and forth from side to side, giving them their different ratings. So this is how I cull. And then I have two monitors in front of me. My second monitor is going to have the full size image of whichever photo I am currently on. And so if I'm needing to check sharpness or anything like that, I go from the grid mode and I look over to my other monitor and I check the full size. But I cull very quickly, just down the middle in grid mode and Lightroom. I can cull 10,000 photos in probably about 2 to 3 hours.
Oh, that takes experience.
It takes a lot, and you have to be ruthless. And what I mean by that is, like, if you spend 5 seconds on each photo, it's going to take you forever. You have to be very quick. You have to trust your intuition and just trust your gut to go through with it. And then as you're editing the photos, if you selected one that you shouldn't have, you just cull it out at that point, So I'm just doing a rough culling initially to get started, and then I go through and I edit the photos. To answer your question with regards to outsourcing, I edit about 20 to 30% of the photos myself, and then I outsource that other 70 or so to a friend of mine. So I will edit sections of the entire day to get them how I want them, to give my editor an understanding of what I want the photos to look like, and then I send them off to my editor to handle the rest.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
That pulls up a different question for me. So there is something called a shutter count in all the cameras, right? So how many cameras do you buy?
How many cameras do I have? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean, if you're shooting around 6,000 to 7,000 images from Canon, they say like your shutter counts lives for around 150K. So it's like you would easily exhaust in a year. So
Well, I literally have no idea how many actions my my Sony cameras have. One of my cameras is on its third shutter. So so that's what happens, right? Is you go through a lot of shutters. But to be very honest, I bought both. I have 3 Sony cameras. I have 2 A7 R3s and 1 A7. And one of my A7 R3s is on its third shutter, and the other one is on its original shutter. And I use them both the same amount. So I think I just got a bad camera with the one that's lost its shutter a few times. I would guess that, you know, I end up shooting around 200, probably, let's see here. I would guess around 250 to 300,000 photos a year on all 3 of those cameras combined. Mm-hmm.
okay.
So every single camera manufacturer has their professional services. So Sony has their pro services, Canon, Nikon, they all have those. And if you are a professional shooter, especially if you're going to be shooting a lot of images, that I think it costs $100 a year. It is well worth it because you're going to need to send your equipment in periodically to be repaired and maintained and cleaned and have little things adjusted. So every single year, all of my equipment, everything, all of my lenses, all of my cameras, all go into Sony to be cleaned and to be maintained during the winter. I send them in usually around January, right after Christmas, to be maintained and updated. And that usually is sufficient. Very rarely do I have to send them in during the middle of the season.
We have one more questions.
Sure.
Like, typically, you do like shoots which happen before the wedding. In down here in this part of the world, we call it pre-wedding shoots,
Mm-hmm.
so where like we have couples just come out for a session,
Mm-hmm.
and then like we just edit some pictures before the wedding. So it's called a pre-wedding shoot here. So
Mm-hmm.
how many how much time do you shoot typically, and how many pictures you deliver?
So with I do pre-wedding shoots as well. Now, all of my couples don't take advantage of them, unfortunately, but I really love shooting them. I have what I encourage my couples to do is to actually do their first look about a week prior to the wedding, where we have complete control over where we go, what time of day we shoot, etc. And I encourage my bride to do a practice hair and makeup run where she goes to the salon, she gets her hair done up, she gets her makeup done, so she knows exactly how she wants to look on her wedding day. I also tell her on this day, you know, get into your dress and do a final fitting just in case we need to make any sort of alterations to the dress. This gives you one last chance to make sure everything fits perfectly. And on that day, let's go out and take some beautiful photos of you, and let's let your soon-to-be husband see you for the very first time on the top of the mountain, at your favorite location, wherever that might be. On those type of photo shoots, I will typically take, you know, I may take about 750 to 1,000 photos, and I'll deliver around 200 of those. And again, usually we are going to be shooting for about 2 hours, I would say. And we'll go to 2 or 3 different locations. So I can show you. Let me see if I can find one for you right here. So, for example, this right here is a real delivered gallery. This is exactly what I delivered to the couple, and this is their first look photo session. This is the bride. So if I go full size with this, this is the bride walking up to say hi to the groom for the very first time. And this was a few days before her wedding. This is all in camera. This is a real rainbow that we happened to get at the very top of the mountain. I mean, such good luck. But they had this moment up here at the top of the mountain, and then the sun started to set. So we shot a few as the sun set. Now these are the ones that I blogged, but the entire shoot, this is the entire thing. So you can see I delivered 166 photos. A lot of them are duplicates where I'm doing it both in color and in black and white. And that's just something that I prefer to do is deliver them in both color and black and white when appropriate. But this is an iconic or a very common first look session for me. And you'll actually see that I shoot at this location fairly frequently. because it's close, it's convenient, it's right off the side of the road, so they don't have to hike super far or do anything too difficult. So, you know, when she wants to keep her dress looking beautiful, this is a beautiful spot that we like to take them to.
Okay. So that puts me to a different question altogether. You said in your experience you have shot a lot of Indian weddings. Okay. So how do they maintain time in Indian weddings?
How do they maintain time? They don't. No, just kidding.
It's okay. It's okay. We don't take offense. We are meant to.
Yeah. No, I mean, the key to all weddings is setting proper expectations, right? So you have to build that relationship of trust with your couples where they trust you and they trust your advice. And so I have on my website, if someone was to go to my website and go to the tab that says client resources, underneath there's going to be a bunch of articles that I've written for my couples that help educate them and help them understand and set their expectations. So I tell my couples, hey, if these type of photos are important to you, I need to have this much time. If you don't give me that much time, I can't create the photos that you are wanting. And so I set that in advance so they know that, hey, if family photos, for example, are very important to them, I need 5 minutes per grouping. If family photos aren't a big deal, we can rush through those very quickly and we can, do it in 1 or 2 minutes per photo. But if you want me to take the time to make sure everyone is perfect, if you want me to hone it in absolutely perfect, then I need more time. And if you don't give me that time, then I can't do that, right? I can only be as good of a photographer as my couples let me be. If they aren't willing to let me have the time that I need, if they run behind in schedule, something has to give, something has to flex. And that usually is the amount of time that we have to do their photos. So Indian weddings, American weddings, whatever, it's the same thing. Couples get behind, their schedules get behind, timelines get off. And I always am just transparent with my couples throughout the day as best as I can. And I will just tell them, hey, we are scheduled to go outside and do your bridal portraits at 10 o'clock. It is 9:50 right now. That's in 10 minutes. You do what you need to do, but I need to let you know if we don't go out, we're not going to get those bridal photos. And I just try to be transparent and open with them. And so they already know that I was able and willing to go out and do those bridal photos. And because their hair wasn't done, we weren't able to do it. Or we went out and had 5 minutes rather than 30 minutes. So they got 2 or 3 poses rather than 15 different poses. And again, Indian weddings, they have a lot going on at the same time. That is why it's difficult, right? You might have a puja going on at the same time that you have a barat going on, and so you're trying to juggle all of this going on, and you have to be very organized. Where you have your second shooters organized. So my timeline that I create, I keep it in my pocket, and I have all of my shooters assigned to each portion of the day. So if photographer number 2 is going to be photographing the puja, and I'm going to be outside shooting the barat, and the third shooter is going to be photographing the guests, that is all assigned and organized in advance. So at any given minute, I could say, photographer number 3, it's 10:30. Where do you need to be? And they should know where they need to be.
So a lot of planning ahead.
Absolutely. Yep.
So that's something different we are learning from you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, timelines are one of the most important part of planning for the photography of a wedding day. Now, granted, you have to be flexible and you have to be willing to adjust as the day happens naturally. But again, if you budgeted 30 minutes for the couple's photos and you get 5 minutes, you're certainly not going to get the same product. The couple is certainly not going to get the same results with 5 minutes as they would with 30 minutes.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it doesn't. Usually 99% of the time, usually it doesn't go the way we plan. especially in Indian weddings.
Right.
So,
it's a difficult thing, and
yeah, you just have to be flexible. Experience teaches you how to make up that time and how to adjust. But again, a huge part of it is just making sure that your couple is aware of what is needed. Again, you can only be, and I can say this a million times, a photographer, an artist, a performer of any sort can only be as good as their client lets them be. And if their client doesn't, their client is behind on everything, then it's going to be very difficult for you to create that product. And your client just needs to be aware of that. They have to take ownership of that as well. And then you as the artist, you do absolutely the best you can with the time that you get. And that's all you get, you know?
yeah.
that's the way that. So
Usually in this demographic region, actually, people most of the time they don't maintain time, so we don't usually get to do what we do. But at least where you come from, actually, people understand. Here, the pressure is on us. Actually, you need to create, even if it's 5 minutes, you need to create it. So
Yeah.
that's the that's very challenging for us.
Right.
So yeah, so I think Kiran, you have any questions in your live video in FB?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Your questions are posted here. I'm just checking my
Yeah.
watch party.
Yeah, I don't see any.
Yeah, looks like that's it. Yeah.
Cool.
So I think we should invite that for one Indian wedding and see how he manages time.
So the next well, you guys invite me out to your part of the world, and I'll second shoot one of your Indian weddings with you, and I'll see how you guys do it.
Yeah. We will be honored.
If the bride is ready, they will call you at 5, and they'll get ready at 7. So you'll have 2 hours to keep playing PUBG.
That's fun.
So we'll invite you once when you are planning to come to India. We'll definitely invite you for it.
If you plan to travel to India, just put up a post or just let us know. We'll be happy. We'll arrange a wedding for you here.
Yeah, I'd love to. I've never been to India. I would absolutely love to go to India. One of my primary second shooters was born and raised there, and so he talks about home all the time and tells me how amazing it is. I've just never had the chance. The closest I've been is Thailand, which I know is not the same thing, but that's the closest I've been to India. It's on my list of places I'd like to get to someday. And to all of your fans back home, you know, if you need a photographer in India, I'm your man. I'll come help you. I'll make it work. We'll work with you to see if we can make it happen.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You should definitely shoot once in a lifetime at least. Like there's a certain caste here called Brahmins, so they have beautiful customs actually. Like the traditions are very rich compared to other weddings, because it is not the same here in India. It's like every caste has their own set of customs and pujas. So any wedding you go, it's not going to be the same the next wedding if you go for a different caste. So you have to be prepared. You need to have a huge knowledge in shooting it. So.
Yeah, I would imagine so. There's so many different, and I know all Southeast Asian weddings all kind of get grouped together as Desi weddings, but they're all so different. And you have to have a good understanding of all of the different ceremonies, all of the different rituals, and the important elements of each ritual, because every single one, you know, there are portions of, there are elements of it that are very important that for someone like myself, I wouldn't know unless I've done the research. You know, I might not know that, you know, grabbing the nose is something that's really important. I might just look at it and go, what the hell are they doing? Why are they grabbing his nose? But knowing that is part of the fun of the day, or stealing shoes or whatever it might be, like these are things that need to be photographed and need to be celebrated and remembered. And for someone who doesn't have the experience, you know, they might not be completely confused at what's happening.
We just need to be alert. Even like, see, to be honest, we have not covered every part of the weddings in India. So we just have to follow that photojournalistic approach and like be alert at all times.
Right.
We cannot afford to.
Yeah, wherever your guest's attention is typically what needs to be photographed.
Yeah, true. There are lots of thank yous.
Cool. Wonderful.
Because it's not just from YouTube, we are streaming it in FB as well. So
Oh, cool. Very cool. Excellent information. Awesome, guys. I've been getting over the last few days. If you guys have been promoting this, a lot of your friends connecting with me on Facebook and on Instagram. So you guys feel free. If you search JM Gant Photography on Instagram or Facebook, or just Jared Gant, you should be able to find me. I'm happy to chat with. If you have any questions, you're happy to answer those as best I can. Feel free to shoot me any messages. Would love your support on social media, and we'll just be in touch, I guess.
Okay. So
Well, like, this particular session needs to be given more importance because image reconstruction is something really important, and not much of photographers will be willing to share their raws. And so there's one question here.
Apart from weddings. Yeah. Okay. So outside of weddings, so to be very honest, weddings are all that I shoot at the moment. But with COVID and the coronavirus, we might not be having weddings anytime too soon. So I do a lot of education as well. But if I was to choose one other genre, or if I was to build another brand, photography brand outside of weddings, likely I would go into high school senior portraits. Here in the United States, that's a big thing. There's a lot of potential money to be made in those type of shoots. And kids are usually fun and easy to work with. So that would be my second choice. And then my third would be to build up a commercial brand where I'm working and photographing company objects and the company representatives and things of that sort. But high school seniors seems like a really fun genre, and I'd love to do that. It would still allow you to be very creative with the seniors.
Awesome. Okay, I think there's no much questions out here. So I think Jared, thank you so much for your precious time. We are extremely glad to have you here. And in future, if you would like to give any sessions like this, we would be really happy to host you.
Okay.
And thank you so much again. Raj, anything to add?
Yeah, just thanks a lot actually. So it means a lot to us actually, because there are a lot of people following here actually, and even they were very happy. I've had lots of people reaching out to me and then saying that okay, that's a good session you guys have put together. And yeah, that's about it. And if you we'll just ask around if people are interested in you conducting a separate workshop once this COVID settled down. Maybe that's not anytime soon here. Maybe you can just come over to India and then we can have a separate workshop for you. Actually, you can conduct a workshop.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I would love that. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we will put it together actually. Cool. It will take a year, not anytime soon because of the COVID situation.
Right.
So we'll keep that in the pipeline.
Okay. Sounds good. We'll be in touch about that.
Yeah, definitely. Sure. Okay, Kiran. Yeah.
No. So thank you all people for joining. மக்களே மிக்க நன்றி எங்க செஷன் ஜாயின் பண்ணதுக்கு. ஐ திங்க் இன்னைக்கு நிறைய விஷயம் கத்துருப்பீங்க. ஏதாவது இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் உங்களுக்கு வேணும்னா நீங்க என்னையோ ராஜியோ கான்டாக்ட் பண்ணலாம். We can always help you on that. And இன்னும் சில செஷன்ஸ் வந்து நெக்ஸ்ட் வீக் பிளான் பண்ணியிருக்கோம். You guys can come and watch. Raj, poster காமிக்கலாமா?
We'll share it later, or you can just tell. If you are just too excited, you can tell actually.
No, it's okay. We'll share the posters. So next week we have one more important photographer like Gant. So we'll see. And I'm going to end the broadcast right now.